This is a production of Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
Welcome. He is John Adams. I am Dave Hooker, the esteemed journalist, John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel and the USA Today Network. And our conversation today brought to you by our friends at Viles Automotive Group and Big Orange Phillies. If you haven't tried Big Orange Phillies, you need to do so. Great food located right there on Maynardville Pike, 6625 Maynardville Pike. Easy to find. Go to Facebook to learn more about them. But you talk about fantastic food, darts, pool, and the best part is that it is a family environment, and I love that. And then right down the road, you've got Viles Automotive Group. I stopped by to see Gary, and I'm blown away. They have cars. I don't know what they're doing different than other places, but they have cars. Viles Automotive. Go to vilesautomotive.com. Check them out. They're on Callahan. They need and appreciate your business. Viles Automotive. John Adams joins us, and kind of like the fiscal year when SEC spring meetings begins, John. And here we go. It kind of is beginning, and I can't remember a more eventful spring meetings. Can you?
Well, no, you don't normally have feuding coaches. That's always a plus. You had Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. They didn't continue their feud there. It's almost everybody's moving on now, as most coaches like to do. I covered my first spring meetings way back in, I think it was 1979. It was in Gulfport, Mississippi. Yeah. And I was thinking this week how much things have changed. It's so different now. It's so much more business-like, more corporate-like. They used to have a hospitality room there at the spring meetings. And coaches, imagine this, football coaches, basketball coaches, drinking and playing cards together.
No, with the media?
This week? I don't think so. It's a completely different environment now. And there used to be the coaches would stay there for most, 3 or 4 days. Now they fly in, fly out. They're all making too much money to stay down there.
Yeah, exactly. It's not in their socioeconomic status. They need to get someplace a little, I don't know, but maybe somewhere out in LA. The big thing that has been discussed is scheduling. And when you bring in Texas and Oklahoma, John, I don't know that everybody's going to be happy. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and guarantee you that everybody's not going to be happy. But I do want to focus on one team in particular. And I like your perspective on these sorts of things a lot because you know the conference. I look at the permanent opponents that matter as Georgia, Auburn, of course, longest running rivalry. That's great. Tennessee, Alabama, that's an incredible rivalry. Do you keep those two and you have to keep permanent opponents across the board? If you're the commissioner of the SEC, would you do that? Because the rest of the permanent opponents, let's be honest, they don't really matter. Florida LSU is kind of cool because they're both usually uber talented. But if you were the commissioner, would you keep permanent opponents?
Probably not. The main thing I would be looking for in scheduling, I want more SEC games. I would like to have a 10-game conference schedule. And then you can play 2 teams from the MAC that you can be up on 42-0 at halftime. But I would prefer to see 10 conference games. I would like to see you play more teams more often. I don't really care about the alignment, whether you use pods, divisions, or what everybody seems to be going to now is the gigantic conference. In the SEC's case, once expansion started, you would have Oklahoma and Texas. You would have a 16-team conference. You take the top two teams at the end of the regular season, they play for the championship. That's probably the most likely model they would pursue. But to me, the alignment isn't important. Is the fact that you're getting more SEC games. I think that's crucial, particularly adding Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, there are a lot of SEC fans that want to make a trip to Oklahoma or to Austin to see their team play Texas. So I think that's critical. as far as the rivalry goes, it's almost as though we're moving past that. Now, one of the possibilities would be that's been discussed is you have 3 permanent rivals, and then everybody else rotates. And then that would probably be a 9-game conference schedule. They don't want to go to a 10-game. Some are hesitant to go to a 9-game because you got to have Mississippi State and Kentucky scheduling 4 opponents non-conference you can beat on their way to a bowl game. But I just think if you go to if you kept 3 permanent rivals, then you could pretty much accommodate everybody with the traditional stuff. And I've been covering this league for so long, and so I'm very conscious of tradition, but I'm also conscious you got to keep moving forward. And sometimes when you do that, things get left behind, and you will create new rivalries. Tennessee, Florida didn't used to be a rivalry. It became a rivalry in 1992 when you went to the divisional format. And Tennessee, Alabama, when you think about it, Dave, you talk about if you had one permanent rival, from a Tennessee perspective, do you want to play Vanderbilt every year, or would you rather play Alabama? Now, you like playing Vanderbilt to get that sure win, unless Jeremy Pruitt or Butch Jones is coaching your team. But Alabama, I mean, that's the name team on Tennessee's schedule, and that rivalry runs deep.
Agreed. I'll tell you what runs deep. Certainly the menu of Big Orange Phillies. Check them out on Maynardville Pike. Big Orange Phillies, fantastic food. You're going to be blown away by the food and the atmosphere, the family atmosphere. A great, just I would say, a void filled by Big Orange Phillies. As you get out in that Halls and Maynardville area, you've got a place to go with your family, have a good time, have great food. That's Big Orange Phillies. Don't forget Biles Automotive Group with a fantastic selection. I'm going to side on the side of I would keep Alabama. I just can't see that rivalry going away. And admittedly, I was talking to a player, John, who grew up a Tennessee fan. His dad played for Tennessee. But he said to him, he may be a little bit different, but the rivalry is still very, very significant. I would just hate to see that go away. Am I just being too emotional and not pragmatic?
Well, everybody looks at this very subjectively. I mean, I think a lot of fans, a couple of years ago, I did a column for the News Sentinel and KnoxNews.com. I did a column on why Tennessee shouldn't have Alabama as a permanent rival. And in the divisional setup, it puts Tennessee at a disadvantage. You can't deny that. And the response to the column was overwhelmingly against it. And I'm used to being in a very small minority sometimes as a columnist.
Not
but
you. Not you. No, you're in there.
No,
you are never a cynic, nor are you ever criticized.
But here's the thing, Dave. If you're trying to win a division championship, Georgia plays Auburn. That's their traditional program, traditional rival. Would you rather play Auburn every year? Would you rather play Alabama? Florida's another, usually a candidate for winning the division. Florida plays, I guess, LSU. And LSU's been really good at times, but still, when you look at it over the course of the Nick Saban era, which goes back to 2007, having to play Alabama every year puts Tennessee at a significant competitive disadvantage.
True.
But the fans don't see it that way. A lot of the fans don't. They want to play Alabama. Go ahead.
Let me play the flip side here for just a second, though, John. I think the players want to play Alabama too. Prospects want to play Alabama. So from a recruiting perspective, never forgetting my roots, I think if you somehow were in a situation where you didn't play Alabama once every 3 years, and I pick 3 instead of 4 or 5 because every player thinks they're going to the NFL after 3 years.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's just a given. So if you're not playing Alabama in 3 years, I think it could hurt you in recruiting.
Not if you're throwing around some NIL money.
Well, okay.
This is a different era. Maybe in the old
Fair.
days when you had to slip them a bag full of cash, have those $200 handshakes, maybe it would have mattered. But I think now that's kind of the wild card in this. But here's the thing about it. One of the reasons a lot of guys want to play in the SEC, let's just say they aren't recruiting. I mean, if you're trying to get to the NFL, Alabama's really the way to go.
Sure.
I mean, with Nick Saban there, we have a history of that. All these different positions. It doesn't matter if you're an outside linebacker, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, whatever. They're just all going in droves to the NFL. So you'd want to play there. And there's the advantage of it at Alabama. You're competing every day and practicing against the very best players. So to your point, yeah, if you can't play for Alabama, playing against them would be a plus because if you're an offensive left tackle and you're blocking against against say Will Anderson of Alabama, that's something that
you're going to get beat.
Occasionally, yes, you are. Some more than others. But remember, you said it. Everybody thinks they're going to the NFL in 3 years. So they think they could block Will Anderson.
Yeah.
I mean, they watch him on TV saying, yeah, I could block that dude. No, actually, you can't, but it's okay to dream. That's what this country was founded on, big dreams. So, yeah, you compete. You want to show that's a great tape. If you do actually block Will Anderson, show it to the NFL scouts. It makes you look good. So there's something to be said for that. I mean, otherwise, why would anybody in the world go to Vanderbilt? I mean, the one selling point that Vanderbilt has to me is well, you're in the SEC.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, you play under the SEC banner and you play all these SEC teams. So you can prove yourself against the very best. So it's I just think when you talk about rivalries, in-state rivalries, Tennessee and Vanderbilt is kind of unusual. I mean, you have Auburn and Alabama. That's meaningful. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, certainly meaningful. But fans would like to get the W. But I think if you poll fans, they would rather play Alabama every year. If you poll Tennessee fans, play Alabama every year, not Vanderbilt. Do you agree? Do you think that? Or do they want that W?
Yeah, I think you have to get into and we're 70 plus range before you get to people that care really truly about Alabama, or 65 plus. I'm sorry, Vanderbilt, excuse me. I think it's kind of subdivided. You have people that are a little bit older that think of Vanderbilt still as a rival. Probably people a little bit younger, my age, that look at Alabama as a rival. Then you have people my age and a little bit younger that look at Florida. And then I don't know what's happened over the past 10 years, but I don't know who the rival is. But I think that Vanderbilt could drop off and nobody is going to say, woe is me, except for 4 or 5 people. But I just don't think Vanderbilt dropping off the schedule makes it less appealing from a fan perspective. I do think I think it obviously takes away an easy SEC win. Well, theoretically. Okay. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. I did a survey with my email group on knoxnews.com once when I asked, do you think that Vanderbilt belongs in the SEC? Would you rather just kick Vanderbilt to the curb and get a more competitive program? And I was surprised. More people said, no, we would like to have Vanderbilt in the SEC. And it wasn't just because that's a win in football on most occasions. And they cited tradition, and they cited, it's a state rival and all that kind of stuff. I was really surprised because I hear from a lot of people that say, why is Vanderbilt in the SEC?
Yeah.
But the survey, which was very unscientific, of course, said, yeah, we want Vanderbilt around, not just to beat up on them. It does have a good baseball program, but it's not that competitive in basketball right now.
True. Speaking of baseball, a great place to watch the games this weekend will be Big Orange Phillies. Again, great food, family environment. So know that you can take your family there. Darts, pool, cornhole, right there on Maynardville Pike in Halls. Big Orange Phillies. You can find them on Facebook, and want to be sure and thank Viles Automotive. They have cars. It is awesome. They really have cars. Viles Automotive. I was just there. They want, need, and appreciate your business. So check them out at filesautomotive.com. We could get into a 3-hour discussion of NIL and the changes that are coming. But again, I want to make it Commissioner John. Okay, so Commissioner John, what say you? You have the final say in NIL.
I hear a lot of administrators and coaches now refer to NIL in the transfer era as the Wild Wild West.
That happened before.
Well, it's a college administrators and coaches are all about a control, and they're losing control. In the NCAA, it's just kind of it's pretty much toothless now. It can't win in court. It's going to get hammered in court. So it kind of is a wild, wild west, and teams are using NIL as a recruiting inducement, even though it wasn't planned that way. Really, what did you think would happen? I mean, come on. If I were commissioner, I would preside over the wild, wild west very proudly, and I would just say, go for it, guys. Just go for it. I don't really care when your NIL deal was consummated. If you use it as I've never had a problem with if somebody wants to give somebody else money. What's wrong with that? Okay.
I've got no issue with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you want to give me $300 for a column, fine. Good for you. Let's, you're my new best friend. But I just, so and that's why we've always had under the table deals. You're not breaking the law. If you want to hand somebody $500 or you write him a check for
you're not breaking anything ethical either, other than the players. If you want to nitpick, they do in their scholarship papers. They say they're not going to accept money.
Well, here's the thing: if you don't have to just give it, you can say, "Yeah, I'm paying them $50,000 to mow my lawn.
Yeah,
I'm paying them $100,000 to rake my leaves." Well, that's that's a negotiated price. What's wrong with that? And so now that the NIL is here, we're all about that. I would just let the free market run free. And if one school has a collective, the liaison between the recruits and between the schools, so to speak, and their collective is more aggressive, and their collective and these boosters are willing to spend more to support their team, to finance their program, I don't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem with that as a commissioner. I think we'd all, if I were commissioner, everybody would make a lot more money and have a lot more fun.
Yeah, and John, here's the bottom line. It's going. I agree with you 100%. It's going to settle itself out. The market will bear what the market will bear. The bottom line is we're in a better spot, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I think we're in a better spot because players are getting some money and what they're worth. And you said something a moment ago. The verbiage kind of bothers me that I hear for a lot. If they want to support their team. Now, I think the players, and they are a part of what we do at offthehooksports.com. I think the players are worth that. I don't think it's purely, no, sure, that's part of it. When you start gambling on a 5-star quarterback out of California, and if he's really getting the millions of dollars like he's supposed to, then that's different. But the players that have proven themselves and that their appearance an advertiser deems worthy, I think that's worth. I don't think that's supporting. I think NIL are two different things right now, if that makes sense.
Well, I think when I say supporting, you're indirectly supporting them.
Sure.
I mean, so however you want to phrase it. I mean, it can work to the advantage of both of both the program and the player. It's going to be, I think, the challenges. We've already seen some challenges, but one of the challenges of this is we talk about control. You're losing control. Is controlling the locker room. You mentioned if there really is $1 million quarterback and he comes in as a freshman, he's never proven himself, and you got an all-senior offensive line blocking for this dude. Are they going to want some money too? And he's getting $1 million. Some people think this will absolutely poison a locker room. When you have some guys making a lot of money, there's no scale here. You know, in the NFL, yeah, everybody's making money, and the linebacker knows he's probably not going to make as much as his quarterback, but they're all making plenty of money, so it's not a factor there. But at the college level, if the quarterback's getting $1 million and the guy's blocking for him may not be getting anything other than a scholarship, that could create that, huh?
Well, no, that's true. But the players I've talked to now, they understand it just like the NFL level. I think it's steroids for a locker room. I think, and that's poor analogy, but I do think it's steroids for a locker room. I think that if you have a semi-toxic culture, it's going to make it much worse. If you have a good culture, knowing that you're picking up these guys, it's going to make it better. Again, it comes down to the individual. We can't just do a broad stroke of how people are going to react. But I haven't gotten that response from players, to be real honest with you, that there's any sort of resentment if Hendon Hooker's making $1 million a year. I just haven't seen that.
But Dave, here's the thing. It's one thing to look at it theoretically as opposed to when it's actually transpiring. I mean, the way they view it now, yeah, we're going to get some money too. This thing could work out. I mean, we understand everybody's got his own ability to sort of negotiate. But I think once you get into the reality of a season and you're playing, and a lot of it has to do with how the $1 million quarterback handles that $1 million.
True.
How could he manage it? For example, with using Tennessee as an example, with Peyton Manning when he was here. I mean, when he was a freshman at Tennessee, he probably he was probably more pragmatic, more practical and more mature than some guys playing in the NFL. And I don't think he would, of course, his family had money, but he wouldn't have flaunted his newfound wealth. I don't think he would have bought 3 cars and parked them all in front of the facility before we went out to practice. I think he would have shared the wealth with his teammates. And I think that's going to be really crucial are these guys mature enough to handle this and think of the big picture? I mean, you want your quarterback to forget the money. Your quarterback needs to be that way anyway. He has to be a leader, whether he's a freshman or a senior, because of his position. How can he manage this? How can he manage the locker room, and what's the relationship that he maintains with his teammates? I think that's going to be really important.
With John Adams, I'm Dave Hooker. The Vol Report brought to you today by Vol's Automotive Group. They have cars. I was there. So you have selection, unlike a lot of other dealerships in town, right there on Callahan and Big Orange, Philly. Check them out. Great food, family environment, easy to find right there on Maynardville Pike. And you're going to love it. 6625 Maynardville Pike, family friendly, great place to hang out. Follow us on YouTube.com. Please subscribe and check out offthehooksports.com, where we'll have some good stuff for you, including paying players, which I never thought I would say as both a journalist and a steward of their eligibility. For John Adams, follow him at the Knoxville News Sentinel. He's one of the best. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic rest of the week. And remember that Vols, they have cars, and Big Orange Phillies, you're absolutely going to love that place. So this has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.